I'm going to be comparing the Spider-Man franchise to the Jurassic Park franchise because in part one of the series, bracket number one, when I compared the Spider-Man franchise to the Planet of the Apes franchise, Spider-Man 1, when I compared the Jurassic Park franchise to the Ice Age franchise, Jurassic Park 1. So now I'm going to compare Spider-Man and Jurassic Park, the winners in the previous part of this series. Now, when you look at highest score for each franchise, Into the Spider-Verse has a 97%. The original Jurassic Park has a 92%. When you look at lowest score, Jurassic World Dominion has a 29%. Amazing Spider-Man 2 has a 51%. What's really impressive about the Spider-Man franchise is that you have 10 movies right now, and only one of them is rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, that being Amazing Spider-Man 2. Even Spider-Man 3, just by a little bit, is fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. When you look at average, Jurassic Park is an average of 56, Spider-Man is an average of 83. When you look at gap between lowest and highest score, with Jurassic Park, you got a gap of 73. With Spider-Man, you got a gap of 44. Spider-Man has won every category so far, and in this case, I'm easily going to say that I prefer the Spider-Man franchise to the Jurassic Park franchise. Now, obviously, the original Jurassic Park from Steven Spielberg is a classic. It's a fantastic movie. Sure, there are things you can nitpick about it, like the fact that the T-Rex is somehow able to sneak into the building at the end of the movie, even though earlier on it was clearly established that any time the T-Rex walks around, the earth shakes. There's these little mini earthquakes because of the T-Rex's footsteps. But the score from John Williams is classic. The story here is engaging. The acting is great across the board. The characters each have a different perspective on bringing dinosaurs back to life and on Jurassic Park. The conversations are engaging. The visual effects, I think, hold up really well. And in fact, to be honest, the original Jurassic Park looks better than some recent big budget blockbusters. I mean, the VFX in Flash, for example, utterly pale in comparison to the effects in the original Jurassic Park movie that came out over 20 years ago at this point. But when I look at the other films in the franchise, the big problem with Jurassic Park 2 The Lost World is that while there's action in the movie that's well done, there's visual effects that are well done, I don't find the story and characters to be all that engaging. I think that the ending to the movie where the T-Rex is running around San Francisco sure is fun, but also feels tacked on because once the characters leave the island, you feel like, yeah, the movie could end here and it would work. It would make perfect sense that the movie ends with the survivors getting off the island. And then, oh, the movie's not over because we're tacking on the T-Rex running around San Francisco. Also, I think Ian Malcolm was more interesting in the first film, seeing him bounce off the other characters, his dynamic with them. But then in the sequel, when he's now the lead, I don't think his character is as interesting as he was before. Also, it's not really clear to me what this movie's actually about. And then when it comes to Jurassic Park 3, sure, I like that the movie isn't long, it doesn't really overstay its welcome, but the couple that's trying to rescue their kid is not very likable. There are really silly moments in the movie, like the image of a raptor talking, Alan Grant using a photocopied 3D printed raptor skull to communicate with the raptors. Also, the poop moment in Jurassic Park 3 feels like it's just being gross for the sake of being gross, whereas you look at a similar moment in the original movie and it works, it makes sense, it doesn't feel like we're going too far in the direction of just being gross. When I think about Jurassic World, I totally get why other people wouldn't like it, and honestly, I can't defend the movie. I mean, the idea that raptors are going to be in the military is obviously ludicrous and makes no sense at all. But it's a movie that I have fun with. It's a movie that I have fun with. However, I just write off Jurassic World as dumb but fun, big budget Jurassic Park fan fiction. So it's enjoyable to me. But I have not seen Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom or Dominion. They just don't interest me. I mean, human cloning, what are we doing here? And also, Dominion absolutely did not follow up on the ending of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom the way it should have. Because, as everybody has talked about before, obviously Jurassic World Dominion should have focused on dinosaurs being loose in the world. That obviously would have been way more interesting. But instead, we're focusing on locust, corporate espionage, and running around evil Apple headquarters. Even though a character like Alan Grant, for example, is not skilled at this kind of thing. So it's like, really, again, we're having dinosaurs be isolated away from the rest of the world. We've done that already in this franchise. Now, admittedly, I think the TV show Jurassic World Chaos Theory and Camp Cretaceous are actually quite good. It was really refreshing to me watching these TV shows, being like, yes, this is actual good Jurassic Park content, but franchise has not been very good. When I look at Spider-Man, I think that the MCU trilogy was overall really good. Yeah, when I look at Far From Home, I think that one is weaker than Homecoming and No Way Home because the plot just doesn't make sense. I mean, the idea that Tony would, for some reason, be so shockingly reckless and irresponsible that he would actually leave this dangerous pair of military grade glasses to an immature and inexperienced high school student who does not have the maturity and judgment required to wield this level of power responsibly, even though Tony could have given the glasses to adults that he trusted that obviously would have been more likely to handle the glasses in a responsible way, like Happy Pepperoni. That doesn't make sense to me. Peter was dust for 5 years. He turned to dust at the end of Infinity War, then he's brought back in Endgame. Why the heck would Tony leave these dangerous glasses to Peter, who does not deserve them, who doesn't know how to be responsible with them, even though there were other better options, and without any kind of instructions whatsoever? That's just stupid. And on top of that, what the heck is Mysterio's end game here? To be a fake superhero? Well, what exactly is he gonna do when a real threat shows up? And it's also like, really, again, a character has bitterness toward Tony Stark. We've done that repeatedly in this franchise. Now, of course, Far From Home is still entertaining, to be sure. There's great moments in here. Overall, I don't think it's as strong. When I think about No Way Home, it was a great gift for Spider-Man fans. The setup, however, is very flimsy. It is lazy, because the idea that Stephen Strange would be so shockingly irresponsible that he would be willing to perform such a powerful and dangerous spell that involves tampering with the minds of every person on planet Earth just because a high school student asked him to is just ridiculous. But what the movie delivers is fantastic. You just wish the filmmakers had put more thought into the setup rather than putting all their thought into the payoff. Homecoming is a very fun, entertaining movie. Sure, I don't like Peter being baby Iron Man Jr., not actually Spider-Man, but the movie's still really rewatchable. And Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, I think, are both fantastic. I'm not a fan of the Mark Webb Amazing Spider-Man films. Of course, there's good things about these movies, like Gwen and Peter's relationship, but there are a lot of issues as well. I just don't like the idea of exploring Peter's parents. I think it's a great example of just answering questions that I was not asking. And also, I don't like The idea that Peter was destined to be Spider-Man. That, oh, only he could have been Spider-Man, because only someone who's part of the Parker line could be Spider-Man. You're really missing the reason why we like Spider-Man in the first place. When it comes to the Sam Raimi films, I like the first two. Of course, there are things about them that seem dated now. The visual effects don't always hold up, especially in that first movie. Mary Jane is such a damsel in distress. She has to be rescued by Peter 4 times in this one movie, and she's constantly screaming. And also, man, the Green Goblin's suit looks pretty ridiculous. But still, I mean, those first two movies hold up rather well as a whole. And Spider Man 3, of course, has good things about it. There are obviously some great moments in there, like Sandman reconstituting himself, but there are a lot of issues as well, like the movie being overstuffed with plot lines and villains. You can clearly tell that Sam Raimi didn't want to do Venom, but he was forced to, and so it just feels really shoehorned in, tacked on right at the end of the movie. Venom is horribly underutilized. There are visual effects that haven't held up that well, especially like in the third act when you have Venom fighting Spider-Man. There are shots that don't look as good. But overall, I definitely think the Spider-Man films have been a lot more consistent than the Jurassic Park films. And honestly, Spider-Man has an inherent advantage, I would say, because it's a premise that more naturally lends itself to a franchise. I do think one of the big problems of Jurassic Park, it's not as easy to figure out what do you do after the first film. Whereas because Spider-Man is a comic book character where he has all these villains or all these side characters, it's just inherently easier to turn that into a franchise. There's obviously more stories you can tell that are interesting. Also, I think Spectacular Spider-Man is a great show. That'll wrap things up for this video.